What we're going to do here is to color match two clips that have used different white balances. One used the correct white balance, which was actually for outdoors, shady weather, and the other with the white balance setting for incandescent lights, which would shift the image over to blue. So we're going to collect two clips here that have used different white balance settings. And one of them is an outdoor scene actually outside of my office window. And we'll put that onto the timeline, just pressing comma. And this other scene from around our house. So we're going to switch over to the color mode. And we'll get to the Lumetri color here. And it's set up where we want it right here. And we're going to set up the, I can actually get rid of the soundtrack here. We don't really need it. Okay, then I'm going to set up a reference monitor. And that allows us to actually look at the two different frames at the same time as they actually change. So this is the reference that we really want. We want to bring this image over to roughly that color setting. Now to start with, it's probably a good idea to bump up things to some degree, like the exposure, and perhaps bump down a little bit the highlights and bump the shadows up, meaning it gets rid of it to some degree. And you could handcraft these just simply by using the temperature and the tint sliders. However, these are a lot of work. It takes quite a bit of fine tuning and things. And you could kind of slide these back and forth. Eventually, you'll get some sort of semblance if you actually move these around enough. And it's already getting fairly close there. I mean, they're different kinds of days. Or another way that you could do this is actually use the white balance eyedropper. And you just click on that and you reset these and it sets it back to where it was. And you take the eyedropper and actually you put it on something that would be white. So I could actually click perhaps right there. And but it's probably a good idea to actually play a little bit first with the exposure and the contrast. Move the highlights down again and bump the shadows up. You can try your whites more or less, your blacks more or less. And it's good to experiment a lot with these. And once you've got them set a little bit more where you like it, then you take the eyedropper and you put it where you think would be some of the whitest snow. And there we've got, it's a little bit more, I think a little bit cooler in here, but we can't really make it go much warmer, and you can play a little bit with the tint. Now, if we move along through here, you'll see it's not exactly the same. You could also play with this clip right here. We'll switch these around. And you could take this clip and white balance that, and it's going to change it just a little bit. It did bring them a little bit closer together. So we've achieved some degree of parity between the types of colors, and it looks like it could be the same day. Now, you'll see the change again if you eliminate all of the basic corrections that we did in there. Of course, that's what it would look like. So if we click the reset, you'll see it still changes. It doesn't work out quite as well. And you realize how much you actually need the various exposures and the shadows and things like that. what we're going to do now is take two clips from my office shot with different white balances and try to match them. This should be a little bit different because they're still images and we have exact points that we can use as white balance references. And one of them is shot with the appropriate white balance, which in this case was fluorescent light. And the other one I shot actually using, I would say, the wrong white balance, probably an outdoors one. Okay, so the first thing that we'll need actually is a reference monitor. And we'll put that on the first clip. And then here we need the second clip. So we're going to take the first clip here and we're going to apply a little bit of white balance to it. See what happens. And I'm going to use this sheet of paper here because it's pretty good standard white. There's no reflection on it. And not much happens, just a slight change in the temperature. And now we're going to go to the second one, and we're going to also apply the white balance eyedropper to that in the same spot. And they actually come out fairly good. This one is just a little bit more saturated around the yellows and things like that. This one here could probably use a little bit more green. This one is just slightly warmer, actually. So let's go back to this one, and we'll just boost the temperature just very slightly. And actually, we should change these two around here. So we could warm this one up just a little bit. And they're actually pretty close. You could do a little bit more tweaking with things like the exposure. You can brighten it somewhat or even darken a little bit. Perhaps bump down the highlights, or you can raise them a little bit. But anyways, these are pretty close. So you'll see as you wipe through these, there's not too big of a difference between them. Here you can see a slight change, but that's not too bad. A little bit more tweaking and we'd probably get it. Okay, I want to show you a fun thing that you can do through isolating colors using the various color applications. And I've got one clip here. It's just people getting ready for a kayak trip. And the other one is just hanging out in my office doing a few things. And both of them will isolate some colors, and very much like you saw in Sin City when all you saw was the red of the blood. So you have to get back into the color mode of Windows. And we've already worked through these. And what you would do is go down to Curves. And here you've got something that you can actually control curves. I'll show you what you can do with that. And then we'll play with this, the color wheels and color saturation curve. Okay, so first of all, you can actually very carefully kind of adjust various aspects of the color on these color curves. And you can see that these bands kind of move in a number of different ways. And you can isolate parts of the red, for example. You could go to the upper scale of the red and get rid of that, but really increase the lower scale of the red. And you see it wanting to go up towards the sky there. So you see, once that goes really high, where the clouds are, they turn quite red, or you can kind of bump it way down. And likewise, you could do the same thing with green and with blue. So you could just kind of randomly work with colors there. And this is a way that you can actually build a lot of very interesting colors within your clip, or you could actually do this in photography also. But I don't want to work on that. I actually want to show you something here that you can do in the hue saturation curve. Now, what I want to do right here is, you can see some colors are very kind of clear in there. There's the red, the blue, and the yellow. And I just want to isolate one of those colors there. And then the rest of it I'm going to desaturate. So we'll start with red. So you can click the red there and you get these little points in there. And you can actually move up and down. So right now we're actually highlighting the red, but you don't really see it all that much. So we're going to desaturate the rest of the colors. And you'll see that as we move through here, the canoes are the only things that have any color to them. And anything with a little bit of red. Now, you could actually get rid of this color here. Now, we've probably forgotten where the yellows are, but we'll kind of guess. And now you could move this along a little bit, and suddenly you see that the paddles gain a little bit of color. Or you notice that they had blue life jackets. You could click on blue and isolate the blue and bring it up. Now, you can use the same function in any video clip just to heighten some particular colors. Let's say you want to make a particular tree a little bit greener than anything surrounding it. And you can get actually quite accurate with this tool here. Okay, there you go. And then you can desaturate everything, or you can highly saturate everything if you like. That's a real fun tool to play with. And we'll do the same thing with my office here. You see there's a lot of bright colored things, and you might want to get rid of some of those or highlight others. So in this case, let's take the blues and desaturate everything else. So you see just the blues pop out. Or you might also want to make this little tarp here turn back orange. There you go. And I find this probably the most interesting tool to work with within the color applications. And you can see here how in this video of walking in the forest, if we would just like to highlight or eliminate some of the colors. So the obvious thing, of course, would be to take green and bump the green up. And desaturate everything else. And you might, well, you can bring the other stuff up just a little bit. And you might want to bump the sky up a little bit brighter blue. There you go. If you notice how it only isolated some of the greens, we didn't move too far towards the blue.